make room for God. I 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 make room for God. Clearing out a space so God can move through me. Clearing out a space so God can speak through me. Clearing out a space so God can love through me. I make room. I make room for God. For God. Oh, I make room for God. Oh, I make room for God. 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 Oh, I'm clearing out a space so God can move through me. Clearing out a space so God can speak through me. Clearing out a space so God can love through me. I make room. I make room for God. For God. Oh, I make room. Na na na. Na 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 na. I'm clearing out a space so God can move through me. I'm clearing out a space so God can speak through me. Clearing out a space so God can love through me. Oh, I make room. For God. For God. I make room for God so God can speak through me. I make room. I make room. Room for God so God can move through me. I make room for God. Make room for God so
Hello and good morning, everybody.
Hey, happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. Welcome to another powerful and wonderful weekend service here at Celebration Spiritual Center. It's so good to see you all. It's so good to see and feel the joy and the love behind your happy Sundays and hellos. And we're just excited to be here this morning with each and every one of you. So let's get started, as we always do, with a word of prayer. And this morning, our prayer champion, Vanessa, will lead us in prayer.
Good morning, Celebration Spiritual Center. Let's relax into the moment by sharing a deep breath. Breathing in and breathing out. And again, we inhale peace and we exhale presence. I am here now. I am here now knowing that there is one mind, power, and presence that is all being and doing, all form and function, one creator that is life as this universe, this planet, these elements that come together in every way imaginable to create the variety of all we experience and beyond. This presence that is never in absence, a divine harmony, precise, perfect, and mine. My breath, my consciousness, my living and loving that is the same for every brother and sister, every home and community, individualized and expressed as the beauty of every face. Mother, Father, God, there is nothing we can do or experience that is outside of our relationship with you. There is no circumstance that is apart from the wholeness that is behind all creation. So any fear, doubt, and worry that we may have had in believing otherwise is hereby released from us, from our collective mind. Lack and limitation, not being of the Creator, shall not be created by us. Here and now we realize ourselves and each other perfect, whole, complete, worthy. In doing so, we hold an affirmative expectation of those we have in mind. We trust that there is a good operating in all circumstances. Inviting your vision to be ours, we see that good easily, allowing it to be demonstrated, celebrated, and expanded upon. We use our power of decision to vote today and at every opportunity for this one and only truth to be known, to be told, to be lived. From this truth, we have our peace. We live our joy. We live an abundance that no system can restrict. We expect and uphold a prosperity that is the divine right of all, that is the first law of all lands. We vision it being legislated and funded into our everyday experiences. We co-create it with these hands. From this place, we release this prayer. Mother, Father, God, knowing it is done, knowing that the means, the way, and the outcome are within us and before us already, thankful in advance for how we will experience this in the Celebration Spiritual Center service today, and carry the seeds of this message into our relationships, our plans, our receiving of the good, our living of our purpose. We vibrate in gratitude for a truth that is always true, a truth that is inevitable to come back to in our daily spiritual practice, and so wonderful to hold together in this community that grows daily and loves fiercely. We thank you, Mother, Father, God, as we move forward with this service and this day, sincerely, faithfully, and with a commitment to the word and power back of. Amen, Ashe, and so it is.
Amen. Ashe.
And so it
And
is.
so it is, and so it must be, and so it shall be.
So it always will be.
So let's get into it. First, we want to just again say happy Sunday to everyone that's here and those that have joined us. And I see you all are already shouting yourselves out. We know that our family on the West Coast is connected, and people all around the world, all five boroughs. And so if you are a first time guest, we specifically want to welcome you and say hello. thanks for joining us this Sunday. And we want to stay in touch with you. We want to keep you abreast of what's going on here at CSC. We're going to share some announcements, but it's always nice to have those things in your email as well. And as we share different links, it's nice to have those links so that you can click on them. And so if you would like to stay in touch with us, we want to stay in touch with you.
Yes, yes.
And all you have to do is text the word welcome to this phone number, 347-472-1078. Now, please just text the word welcome. I noticed there was someone who texted the word welcome last week. I don't know if you're connected with us now, but it can have an additional signature. It was a beautiful signature with nice emojis and things, but actually the system doesn't recognize that. So you can just text the word welcome, nothing else added to it, and then you'll get a prompt response. It's automated, and it'll ask for your information. Once you give us your information, you're locked in. You have everything you need, and you'll get that weekly email every Friday, and any additional emails or announcements that we need to send out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, let's get into the announcements because we have a few things to cover before we move into our meditation. So the very first thing, we are in voting season.
Season
right?
is here.
No longer just election day, but it's voting season. Early voting began yesterday in New York. It was awesome. I saw so many of you posting. I saw the reports online. And on the news, folks waiting in line 3-4 hours, and we see you. It's awesome. Please take the time, check out where your polling place is, pick a day.
Make a plan.
Yes.
Take food.
Yes.
All that good stuff.
So in some states, you can still register. In some states, you can actually register up until Election Day. So if that's available in your state, you can check that out. We're going to give you some links for how you check that out. Definitely vote early. Early voting is available almost in every state now. Request an absentee ballot. There's still time to do that in most states. And when you get it, send it as soon as possible or take it directly to the Board of Elections. And again, plan for long lines, but you have to have a plan. Again, I saw so many people posting on Facebook saying, yeah, you want to bring a snack.
And a chair, if you can.
A chair, right, a beach chair. Make sure your devices are charged up and ready. Make sure you have some audiobooks or a couple shows that you can watch while you're waiting and standing in line. Also, there are a host of wonderful resources, and as I shared earlier, if you're on our mailing list, you'll have these links as well to get more information on how do you register, how do you request an absentee ballot, finding out where your polling place is. And so start with any one of these links, vote.org, iamavoter.com, whenweallvote.org, blackvotersmatterfund.org, and fairfight.com. So again, we only have next week is the final day of voting with Election Day. And so we are in voting season. It's exciting. It's wonderful to see so many beautiful souls exercising their right and making their voice be heard.
And if you have requested an absentee ballot and it has not arrived, please go back to the website and track where it is. You may need to make an alternative plan if it does not arrive in time. So make that part of your plan as well. If you've requested it and it hasn't arrived, go back to the website in your state and find out where it is in process.
Yes.
It's very important that you get it or that you go ahead and vote in person. Just check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Also related to Election Day, next week, Tuesday at 6 a.m., 12 p.m., and 6 p.m., we will be streaming prayer. Pastor Yolanda, myself, and the prayer champions will be holding the high watch and knowing the truth for all persons involved for that day and the days ahead. And we recognize how powerful and important this is. This is a vibration that you'll be able to tap into at any point during the day. It'll stream out on Facebook and on YouTube, and the link will be available. The recordings will be there, so you can tap into it, you can share it, you can listen and listen again.
While you're standing in line in your voting location, we will be holding the high watch that it is an easy process and ensuring the safety of everyone involved.
And as spiritual people, it's a both and,
Yes.
right? We pray and we vote.
We pray and we move our feet, yes.
Yes. We also wanted to remind everyone that there are resources that are available here in New York State. There's the COVID-19 emotional support line. We recognize that so many of us are experiencing COVID fatigue and sometimes letting our guard down. We're seeing the cases rise here in New York. The total cases now are at levels that they haven't been at since May. The same in New Jersey. We're seeing record numbers, for instance, in Illinois and other states. And so each state provides various resources, but we specifically, as we are here in New York, we want to share these resources that are available in New York. Remembering that it's okay not to be okay, and there are people that you can reach out to and talk to. This is also important because we recognize that there's so many levels to it. You may not be sick. No one you know may be sick, may have not transitioned, but we know that there are folks in our community that have experienced layoffs. We know there are folks in our community that were sick, and the recovery process is not overnight. Some days are better than others. There's so many layers and so many things that are going on that are related to this pandemic, and it's important to know that you have support.
Right. It's not just your physical health that we're concerned with. It is also your mental health.
Yes, yes. And so to that end as well, in New York City, we have NYC Well, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with because we've worked with Thrive NYC for many years now. But here's the info. If you don't need it, you can text it to a friend. It's very easy. You can access it via text or via chat on the website or via this phone number. The most important thing is just to reach out. Reach out for support. Know that you're not alone. Know that you're not supposed to have it all figured out.
Yes.
Because we are in this period of emotional highs and lows, right? And that's going to kind of keep happening. And so we have to give ourselves grace around that. We definitely have to give ourselves grace.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And one of the other ways that you can receive support here at CSC, as we have already affirmed, we believe and know the power of prayer. And so if you have a prayer request, you can absolutely send it. Send it to prayerchampions@celebrationsc.org, and myself and Pastor Yolanda and the prayer champions, we receive that prayer. We pray over that prayer. We hold the high watch. We know the truth. We affirm the truth for you, your family members, your friends, whatever that request is all about. It is another means of support, and we want to continue to support you in this way. Again, prayerchampions@celebrationsc.org. Additionally, we have a weekly prayer every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. So while we are next week, we'll be praying 3 times on Tuesday. That next Wednesday morning, we tap into the same vibration every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Just call in this number and wait on the line, and we begin promptly at 7 a.m. We share a reading from the Daily Word, and one of our prayer champions then leads us in prayer. The playback number is also here because the prayer is recorded. So if you find yourself in need of prayer tonight, you can call this number
Tonight.
Tonight, and hear the most recent prayer. All you have to do is wait on the line. You don't have to dial in a code or anything else, and the most recent prayer will begin to play. Yes, yes. And so with that, we are going to move into our time of going within, and PY will lead us so lovingly in meditation.
It is always an honor and a privilege to be with you all each Sunday, to remember and to remind, to love and to hold, to let go and to allow God. I often say that we can spend and do spend a lot of time learning, understanding, trying to memorize spiritual truths. But it's just information if we haven't integrated it and developed our own personal relationship with God. God, as I say, is a felt reality. It's not just a concept, a construct. It's definitely not a dogma. It is a felt reality. And so we take time each week to remember that connection. We hope that you're doing it daily, but we definitely make time and make room for God. And in making room for God, that is our theme for the month. We're clearing out the space, opening ourselves to receive insight, allowing ourselves to move through the emotion that we might feel, allowing ourselves to be where we are, but knowing that there is a connection, there is a center, there is a truth that we all live by and live from. This month, it's all about making room. And in this last Sunday, we're going to continue that vibration of making room. So go ahead and find yourself a comfortable seat wherever you are in your home, seated nicely and upright in your bed, wherever you find yourself that feels comfortable. Take a second and look around. Notice that you are in the safety of your own space. And that space symbolizes the safety, the love, the support, the comfort of God. As you settle in, relaxing, noticing the sits bones, noticing the body, noticing the chair behind you or the sofa behind you, feel into all of that. And now, go ahead and close your eyes. And with that subtle movement of closing the eyes, we make a pact with ourselves. We remind ourselves that it's safe to go within. With our eyes closed, we take our focus off of the external world and bring it to its rightful place within. With our eyes closed, we signal an opening to make room for God. And from this deeply connected place, we begin to notice the breath right where it is. We practice non-judgment with ourselves and our breath, and allow it to flow as it does. Whether that breath is deep or giving the appearance of being shallow, we just notice that God is here as the breath, and we make room for the breath. Continue to notice right where it is and right where you are. One more round of noticing that as the breath enters the nostrils, it is cool as it makes its way through the body, being warmed on the inside. And as it makes its way out, it feels slightly different. That cycle of breath is symbolic of the giving and receiving, of the opening and the allowing. Now, let's take a little more conscious control of the breath, for it is ours to control. Bring your focus to the low belly. Together, inhale into the low belly. Hold it there. Open the mouth and relax, release, and let go of the breath. Inhale again into the low belly. Hold it there. Open the mouth, relax the jaw, and let it all go. This time, inhaling into the low belly, up through the rib cage, elongating the breath, feeling the ribs expand, noticing the front and the sides and the back of the body. Hold it there. Open the mouth and let it all go. Inhale again into the low belly, up through the rib cage, feeling the sensation of opening. Hold it there. Open the mouth and release it all. Inhale into the low belly, up through the rib cage, now making the way and the breath, sending it up through the heart chakra at the center of the chest. Hold it there. Open the mouth and release. One more time. Inhale, in and up, connecting each part of this breath, finding and making its way to the heart, the healing center. Hold it there. And releasing. Open the mouth, let it all go. Every thought, every worry, every care. Let's practice this a few rounds on your own, inhaling in and up, connecting to the heart space, holding it there, and then releasing. A few rounds on your own. Last time, inhaling in and up through the heart, holding it at the top. This time, close the lips, exhale through the nose, nice and easy. This will be our form of breath for the remainder of our time, as we signal our body and our mind to make room for God. Let's take the energy of the breath, that pranayama, and send it into our feet now. Relax the feet. Maybe wiggle the toes. Relax and release them to the floor. And feeling that energy that you've made room for gather beneath your feet, giving it permission to move and relax the ankles. As we bring each part of our body into a relaxed state, we make room for God, sending the energy up our shins and calves. Relax the shins and the calves. Energy flows across the knees. We bend in honor and in grace and surrender. Relax the knees. Now the energy flowing across the thighs, making their way towards the hips. Relax the thighs, glutes, hamstrings. Energy gathered in our seat of joy, our hips. Relax the hip sockets. Surrender the lower half of the body. Make room. Energy gathers at the base of the spine, giving it permission to activate each chakra on the way of ascension. See it in your mind, traveling up the spine, up, crossing each chakra and out the crown of the head. Make room for God. In our minds, in our experience, from an open crown, We see this energy in our minds gathered, connecting us one to the other, sending energy across the planet, and being a receptacle for the joy of God. Open and allow the energy now to flow down, down, activating the third eye, opening the throat, and sending that energy across the shoulders. Relax the shoulders. Energy flows out and down, making its way out the fingertips, turning the palms up to receive or down to ground. Whichever position you hold, scan the body, making sure that you're not holding energy that would prevent love from flowing. And as we prepare for our silent time, remind yourself, if the mind wanders, it is okay. I make room for God. I make room for God. I make room for God. I will monitor the time. You take the inward journey. Make room for God now. With our eyes closed, we notice, we honor, we feel deeply this connection to Mother, Father, God. With our eyes still closed, we enjoy the time and the sensation of openness and availability. With our eyes still closed, we just receive more God. We remember this time as we go about our week, as we go about and interact with others. We never lose this connection. And if it feels as if we have, we just say, I make room for God. I've cleared out the space so that love can occupy this place, this heart, this knowing. Let's begin to make our way back. Eyes closed, maybe we just notice a sensation of wiggling the fingers and the toes, and how that vibration and that simple action begins to bring us more into the awareness of our body, brings us back to this room. If the palms are still turned up, turn them down and maybe gently rub the palms across the tops of the thighs, the knees, the shins, signaling them to also awaken. Pausing here to draw the shoulders lovingly up by the ears, inhaling, drawing the shoulders up. Exhaling nice and easy as the shoulders relax gently back and down. Again, inhaling up, shoulders up by the ears. Inhaling, releasing the shoulders nice and easy down and back. One more time, inhaling. Shoulders up and opening the heart and the chest, sending the shoulder blades together, down and release. Now bring the palms together at heart center. And lightly touch the thumbs into the sternum right there, center of the chest, making contact. Bow the chin to the fingertips, acknowledging the movement, as subtle as it is, that opens the spine, the neck. Pausing here to notice the beating of the heart that has been ongoing this whole time. And from this place of gratitude for the proper functioning of our body, a place of gratitude for the connection to each other and to those who have gone before us, we honor and we allow all that is to make its way and to be part of our experience. Now slowly, lovingly, flutter the eyes open. Nice, soft gaze, maintaining this vibration of softness, of peace and ease. Together, inhale, raise the chin, raise the gaze, release the breath. Namaste.
Namaste. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, PY.
You're welcome.
So this is the last Sunday in October. I swear this month has just moved by so fast. We keep talking about it. And so we're going to close out this sermon series, Releasing Us, today. But before we get into the message, we are going to hear from Soul 21. So let's get into that, and then we'll get into the word.
There is always a choice, the path of fear or the path of love. But what my life has proven to me over and over again is that love is the way. Yes, yes?
Yes.
So we're going to affirm this truth in song.
can understand all mystery. Love is the more excellent way. But if I don't have ever found another you, love is the more excellent way. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is humble. Love is humble. Every single time. It's not easily angered. Enduring the test.
Never, ever forget. Love is the more excellent, the more elegant way. And I am so grateful to know it. It's something that we come back to over and over again because it is the absolute truth. We have the opportunity to choose love or choose fear. Well, good morning again, everybody. It is so good to be here with you, and I am excited about this message today. So let's just talk about where we've been over these last 3 weeks in this series, Releasing Us. We started with Was Blind, But Now I See. And I talked in that message about the idea that spiritual people run into the house of blindness. And actually being blind is one of the most unspiritual things. But we have seen so many times where folks want to run to, oh, but spirit has no color. But what we recognize is that blindness removes knowledge. It removes facts. And it's rooted in a misunderstanding and a misapplication of what Dr. King actually said in the I Have a Dream speech. And we recognize that in order to move from us to we actually have to see each other. We can't live in blindness. In week 2, Show Me Some ID, I talked about how our sense of identity can become problematic. We identify in so many different ways, all beautiful and necessary within themselves, but to the extent that they don't allow us to then practice empathy, then we have to question our identities. We also looked at the idea that many of our identities have actually been born out of trauma, and so those need to be healed. And how do we heal any of those things is by practicing empathy. And actually practicing empathy requires us not to be vulnerable, but actually to operate in our invulnerability, because what we're doing, the truth, the spiritual truth, is that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and that transcends every identity. But in order to empathize sympathize with your sister, your brother, your fellow human, you actually have to step outside of that human identity and reveal your spiritual identity, which is your invulnerability. And then you can listen, and then you can be there for them. You can comfort, you can nurture. Last week, truth and reconciliation. I invited you to look at this idea of what's required for truth and reconciliation, and recognizing that it's really a process of forgiveness. And forgiveness has these two components: that you have to tell the truth of the story. You have to tell what happened from your vantage point. You have to feel the feelings. All of that has to happen before you can get to reconciliation. And so often, as we want to move to we, as we want to release us, so often what we're doing is trying to run quickly to reconciliation, or run quickly to forgiveness, or expect that we should run to forgiveness, when actually we have not actually revealed the truth and really acknowledged the truth. And we brought that wonderful, beautiful metaphor that Isabel Wilkerson gives us in Cast, in understanding that America is like an old house, right, that we've inherited, and we've got to look at what's going on with the old house. Just as if you bought an old house and there are things that need to be fixed, you could bury your head in the sand, right? You could not go down in the basement and see what's going on with the flooding, but you of course are going to experience the ill effects of that. And so the truth aspect of this is just like looking at the reality of what's going on with the house, but knowing that it can be fixed, knowing that it can be healed and resolved. And so this journey that we've taken brings us right to where I want to close today. And I was thinking about the origins of the United States, how the origin story of the United States is taught. Now, origin stories are very important. Origin stories are very valid because they tell us something. They tell us how something or someone or some way of living came to be. And so you have to have an origin story. Countries and nations have origin stories. Families have origin stories. Individual people have origin stories. They tell us and they answer the question, why? Why did something come into being? Why is it here? And so they also then become the lens for how we view our lives and how we live our lives. And so as I begin to think about the origin story of the United States, I think it's very interesting sort of how the origin story is told, and the focus that's placed on a very specific part of the origin story, which also leads us into a problematic place. Because most of us don't remember these dates from history, but the Revolutionary War, the full timeline of the Revolutionary War took place between 1754 and 1783. I'll say that again. The full timeline of the Revolutionary War took place between 1754 and 1783. That means that the Revolutionary War started 22 years before the Declaration of Independence, and it ended 7 years after the Declaration of Independence. The U.S. Constitution then was signed in 1787. Now, why do I highlight this, and what does this have to do with our origin story? Well, our origin story is really all about independence, right? We have all of these little moments, Paul Revere, we have, give me liberty or give me death. And of course, we have the words of the Declaration of Independence. And the way it's taught to us, it all feels like that was just one incredible year in 1776, and then the 13 colonies became the United States, right? Free of the British Empire, right? But that's not what happened. One, there was all of this momentum that had to take place, right? 22 years of momentum that had to take place to get to this final cresting point of the Declaration of Independence. And even after that declaration, the war was fought for another 7 years. But the perception is that independence happened on July 4th, 1776. And that's what we celebrate. That's our nation's Independence Day. Even though if you look at it factually and literally, Independence Day should really be when the war ended, right? When the British retreated, when they raised the white flag, or Independence Day should really be when our Constitution was founded, or signed. That would be really the start of the nation if you think about it. But we've been given this story that then has put our focus on independence, and put our focus on independence in a way that doesn't tell the full story. And so what I began to think about and understand is that this focus on independence has created a very specific way of seeing the world. I believe that this is what has led to this idea of rugged individualism, which is a very American idea and ideal. I believe that this focus on rugged individualism has become synonymous with the American way of life, but it's also led to the twisted and patently false idea of being self-made. Right, because again, if you think about this story, that we celebrate July 4th, 1776 as that was the moment, that was the beginning, or that 1776 was the magical year when all of these wonderful things happened, ignoring this 22-year history and the 7-year history after that then actually really gives birth to the nation. Then that's why we have this false ideas that we as individuals can be or are self-made. And again, I think this is a very uniquely American idea, and it's false. No human being is self-made. Right? Every great entrepreneur, their idea was wonderful, their idea was powerful, their genius helped to push things forward. But if there was a factory involved, there were people working in that factory. They had they had teams of people that were in their marketing departments and in their accounting departments, right? And also then there were the consumers, those of us that bought or buy the products, right? So you can't be self-made, right? It's impossible, right? Steve Jobs needed somebody to buy Apple products in order for him to become Steve Jobs, the billionaire. That didn't happen alone or by himself. And I think if we go further, then the ugliest and most deficient manifestation of this idea of rugged individualism and being self-made is fully and grossly embodied by the current occupant of the White House and the sycophants that surround him. And so the story of independence, this origin story, I believe, needs to be re-examined and reimagined. Because in order to release us and embrace we must release independence and embrace interdependence. Now, I know it may feel a little weird because you're at home and you can't see and touch and hug all of our beautiful friends and family of our beautiful community, but we're going to affirm this together right now in affirmation time. You can't turn to your neighbor unless you have a neighbor with you. But if you have a neighbor, then please turn to them. But let's just affirm this right now. I am interdependent. Just take this moment and speak it out if you're by yourself or if you're with friends and family. I am interdependent. One more time. Now, it's interesting when we think about interdependence, if we think about the American story, think about all of the people and the brilliant minds and the labor that has been necessary to make the United States what it has become. It required interdependence. But this is not the origin story we're taught. And this is why, like I said last week, it would require that truth and reconciliation process that we talked about. There's a whole lot of truth that would need to be revealed, right? The interdependence that literally the slaveholders in the Carolinas specifically sought certain Africans from a specific region in Africa because of their brilliance in creating and cultivating and harvesting rice and irrigating the land that was necessary. They were genius minds from an engineering perspective and from an agricultural perspective. And so they were literally sought out. And that's how we get the Carolina gold, Carolina rice industry, right? There was an interdependence that was required, right? And so again, these kinds of truths would need to come out. And so interdependence is a spiritual truth. It's rooted in the spiritual idea of oneness. Interdependence is our path forward. It's how we move forward. And interdependence is the key to solving the great problems that are before us here in this nation and throughout the world. So what is interdependence and how does it operate in the world? Some of you may have seen, I posted this on Instagram, a portion of a quote from the 30-Day Mental Diet by Willis Kinnear. And I want to share this piece because it's one of the days, I think it's day 21, about how to use the power of love. And he writes this: love is fundamentally a recognition of the interdependence of all things and the realization that there must be cooperative relationships. The dynamic force of love goes far beyond the intimate relationship, beautiful and sublime as it is. It applies to the harmony that must exist between all parts of life: family, neighbors, associates, states, and nations. Love alone provides harmony, constructive endeavor, and mutual well-being. And so, as we just heard the song, Love is the More Excellent Way, when we talk about interdependence, we're really talking about love. Now, I told PY this week as I was prepping for this message, I was like, I'm always talking about love. Like, talked about love last week and the last month and the power of love and the month before that. And it's like, PG's always saying something about love. But I pray that I'm going to keep talking about love because it's what we need to talk about. But also, I pray that we can see and understand the manifestation of love in this context and see it anew and begin to practice it anew. Because there's these beautiful key words that come out of this piece that I just read. When he talks about interdependence, when he talks about love, he says that interdependence is a cooperative relationship. He says it involves harmony, it's constructive, and it leads to or provides mutual well-being. Now, I love these attributes when we start to think about it, because this is the manifestation of love. This is the manifestation of interdependence. And so when we say that I am interdependent, we are also saying that what I'm about is cooperative relationships. I am one that's choosing to live in harmony and harmonize with all people. I am one that chooses to find constructive solutions. I am one that chooses to live in well-being. And again, these words are so specific. Cooperative relationship. We cooperate together. We work together. Harmony. Two different notes, but played together, create something that neither note by themselves could create. And it sounds good, and it feels good. Constructive, the opposite of destructive. Interdependence is constructive. It builds up. It puts together. And finally, mutual well-being. And that word, I know that you all are very brilliant and smart folks. And I just want to look at the definition of that word mutual, because it's so very important when we think about interdependence. Mutual, directed by each other, each toward the other or the others, as in mutual affection. Having the same feelings one for the other, as in they had long been mutual enemies. Shared in common, enjoying their mutual hobby, or joint, their mutual advantage. And so there's a joining that happens here. There's a familiarizing that happens here. All of this is, of course, then rooted in what we were talking about a few weeks ago about empathy, right? That's how we're able to practice empathy, but that's how we're also able to receive the benefits of empathy when we're on the receiving end of it. It's because of our interdependence. And so again, as I said, what we're really talking about is love, but we're using another word and we're using another lens so that it supports us in understanding what love is in a more powerful way. So when we say or when we sing what the world needs now is love, sweet love, or when we ask the question, I just saw a post yesterday of Jennifer Hudson singing Where is the Love with Black Eyed Peas. We're not talking about emotion. When we say what the world needs now is love, sweet love, we're saying what the world needs now is cooperative relationship, sweet cooperative relationship. What the world needs now is harmony, sweet harmony. What the world needs now is things that are constructive, sweet things that are constructive. What the world needs now is mutual well-being, sweet mutual well-being. And so know that this is not some syrupy sweet emotion. Right, that this is not just about the intimacy between two people, but it's something much greater, much wider, and so very, very important. So what the world needs now is interdependence. Our stories must be stories that then reinforce this ideal. History and science must be taught and written through this lens. Interdependence is grounded in the spiritual truth of oneness, but interdependence must then be taught as a spiritual and religious value. That we must look at our stories in a different way. What would it look like to tell U.S. history our origin stories from this place of interdependence. There was a great dependence built within the slave trade. There's a great interdependence that shows up as we see all of the different immigrants that have come into this country. There's a great interdependence we have right now with our sisters and brothers that come in from Mexico to pick vegetables and fruits and package our fruits and vegetables. There's an interdependence that's always happening. It's one of the beautiful things. I keep thinking about this period that we're in with this pandemic, and really just the moment. I don't even name it just the pandemic itself, but 2020 has been the great revealer. And it's revealing things at every level of society. And one of those things that became revealed because of the pandemic, as we are celebrating and honoring essential workers, there's a recognition, oh, the person at the grocery store, I actually need that person. I need her, him, them. I need them to be well, right? I need them to be safe and healthy, and I need them to be well compensated, because that affects me. The person that's working at Amazon and locating the things that you need and packaging it up into those boxes, or delivering those things. There's an interdependence that's been revealed in this year through the pandemic. And so as I say that interdependence is grounded in the truth of oneness, the spiritual value of oneness, it brought to mind Lao Tzu. And it brought to mind the Tao Te Ching. And the reason why it brought it to mind is because of the origin story of how the Tao Te Ching came to be. According to the origin story, it said that Lao Tzu was sick and tired and fed up with the ineptitude and cruelty of the politicians of his time, and at the same time, the endless suffering of the people. And he said, I had enough. I'm leaving China. I'm getting the hell out of here. And as he was on his way out, as he reached the gates to leave the city, he was stopped, and they said, Lao Tzu, you great man of wisdom, can you please just leave something with us so that we no longer, so that we can have something to tap into your wisdom and your insight. And according to the story, it says he sat down, wrote the 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching, said here, and walked off and disappeared into the mist, never to be seen again. And so my mind comes to Lao Tzu and the Tao Te Ching because it speaks to this time, because one of the things that he was inviting the readers to understand as he saw where they were in the world, the ineptitude and cruelty of the politicians and the endless suffering of the people, he recognized that interdependence was necessary. And so in the Tao, he uses the word Tao, which is another word that could be used for God or life or the source of life, or love, right? And he writes in verse 60, when Tao is present in the empire, dark spirits lose their power. It's not that they have no power, it's that their power can't harm anyone. When Tao is present, the people enjoy the blessings of heaven. They find unity. They find peace. I'm paraphrasing this now. When interdependence is present in the empire, dark spirits lose their power. It's not that they have no power. It's not that independence doesn't exist and we found a level of power in independence. We found a level in power of celebrating people that are so-called self-made, or celebrating ourselves as though we are self-made and living in this patently false idea of rugged individualism and pulling yourselves up by your bootstraps. Obviously, that has had some level of power, right? And it's pushed this nation forward in many different ways, but it's caused so much suffering. But what he says is that when you operate in interdependence, it's that power of rugged individualism, that power of self-made, that power of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, that power of I did it, so you should be able to do it. I did it with no help. You should be able to do it with no help. It's just that can't harm anybody anymore. When Tao is present, when interdependence is present, what happens? The people enjoy the blessings of heaven. Now, we know that heaven is not a real place, but it is a real experience. And what happens in heaven? Justice happens in heaven. What happens in heaven? Equality happens in heaven. What happens in heaven? Everybody has a seat at the table. What happens in heaven? Everybody eats. What happens in heaven? Everyone has a home. What happens in heaven? Everyone is making a living wage. What happens in heaven? Everyone has health care. What happens in heaven is that we begin to then solve these great problems that are happening in our world. Why? Because we find unity. What did I say? Interdependence is cooperative relationships, harmony, mutual well-being. That's unity. And they find peace. No longer are we living in the state of unrest that we're in now. It's so interesting when we think about the term that's used, social unrest. Well, why aren't we resting? Because we're operating in this false idea of independence, a false idea that we've been indoctrinated with from childhood. But the truth of life and even the truth of this country, if we look again, is interdependence. I mean, even the fact, I'm thinking about this because of the way that it's portrayed in Hamilton. Even the fact that the U.S. could not win the Revolutionary War by themselves, right? For those of you that have watched Hamilton, you know about the friendship between Hamilton and Lafayette, and how Lafayette was actually instrumental in supporting and getting French support in the Revolutionary War, right? The independence is one of the great lies. Self-made, again, but the story we're told is like, oh, you know, our founding fathers were just independently brilliant, individually brilliant, and their individual brilliance gave birth to this nation, right? But there was a whole host of folks, so many names that we'll never know. Many of them are our ancestors that fought in this war, that believed in the underlying ideas and ideals, right? And so we get to live in this new reality. And this is what Lao Tzu was pointing to. Again, there's so many other verses in the Tao Te Ching that remind us of the same thing, but I love this verse. When interdependence is present in the empire, dark spirits lose their power. It's not that they have no power. It's that their power can't harm anyone. And then when interdependence is present, the people enjoy blessings of heaven. They find unity, and we find peace. So some of you may be asking, well, PG, can this really happen in the world? Like, this sounds nice. And, you know, this was a little sleight of hand, the way you preach it about love, but not love, and you using interdependence to talk about love. But at the end of the day, love in politics, really? Love in government, really? Love in academia and in the halls of science, really, Pastor Greg? Really, that's what we need, right? We just need to kumbaya our way through the problems of the world. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that interdependence is the lens. As we begin to see the world through that lens, it leads us to ways of being. It leads us into ways of thinking. It leads us into ways of acting. It leads us into ways of legislating that completely transform our planet. This is love in action. Because I believe you would agree that in politics and government and academia and science and the world over, we need cooperative relationships. Yes, yes. In Congress, they love to use the word bipartisan, but we ain't seen much of bipartisan participation. Cooperative relationship. Harmony. We need some harmony. We need to change this red and blue to purple. We need things that are constructive. There are so many laws and even ways that judges are voting that are destructive. It's one of the things that's been talked about over and over again as it relates to Amy Coney Barrett, right? That the Affordable Care Act may be struck down, that Roe v. Wade may be struck down. All destructive things. We need things that are constructive. We need things that are going to be upheld, right? And finally, mutual well-being. This is important. Mutual well-being, which is rooted in this idea of love your neighbor as yourself, because your neighbor is yourself. So I, as a cis hetero male, can I operate in mutual well-being with my LGBTQIA plus family? Yes. I look for that thing. I want you to be well as much as I want me to be well. And so we operate in mutuality, interdependence. For my sisters and brothers and fellow humans who are differently abled, what does mutual well-being look like? That's interdependence. And so that's going to inform how we legislate. That informs our laws. That informs in schools how schools are built. It informs in schools how teachers teach and the ways and things that need to be acknowledged, right? That informs in science, in even as you know, race. Unfortunately, it's a pseudoscience, right? And science was used to perpetuate race. And as I shared a few weeks ago, in that idea of identity, it's got us all screwed up, right? We get a DNA test from 123andMe or Ancestry.com and find out that we have ancestors from Italy and say, oh, that's why I like pizza so much. And that's anti-scientific, but it's rooted in these awful stories and ways in which that we've been taught that genetics and DNA work, right? Versus culture and identity. And so I want to leave you with a story, because when we ask, can this really work? It absolutely can really work, and it actually does really work. And it reminded me of something that we've all experienced this year with the governor of New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo, who's been awesome, and he's received, you know, so much praise and love because of his leadership and the way that he has stood this year, and particularly in the way that he has guided our state through the height of the pandemic here in New York and flattening the curve. And Governor Cuomo gave us a term that he began to use every day in his press conferences, his press briefings. He said that we are New York tough. But he didn't leave it there, he defined it. He said we're New York tough. And being New York tough means that we're smart, that we're united, that we're disciplined, and that we're loving. And this is something that he continued to say every week, really implanting this idea in our minds and reminding us of who we are, reminding himself of who we are, and making the choice daily to embody that. He was saying we are interdependent. I mean, think about it. If you think about the context of what I shared, cooperative relationship, harmony, constructive, mutual well-being. Being New York tough is operating in interdependence, smart, united, disciplined, and loving. And so in New York Magazine, he's interviewed, the title of the article is Governor COVID. And near the end of the interview, they're talking about two aspects of the problem that he faced as a leader, and then his solution and why he believes that it was effective. So first, the problem. He says, every conversation was the same. People saying there's no way government can put the policies in place enough that we flatten the curve. And there's no way that people would follow them, even if you put them in place. It's just too dramatic, especially in New York, where people are very strong-willed and we're very diverse. Plus, nobody trusts government anymore. And I was a popular governor, but you're going to a level of connectivity and trust that people just don't have with government anymore. I mean, you have to go back to when was government that intense? World War II. Now, right here is important, because what he was really saying was, we're too freaking independent to come together and worry about our neighbor and our brother and sister and wear a mask and stay home and live life very differently. And people don't trust government anymore because government has failed us in so many ways. And but at the same time, people's lives are at stake. And so he was outlining that interdependence was lacking, and there was a need. There was a need to begin to operate from interdependence if we were going to flatten this curve. And so the solution, what does he say? To establish the connection that was necessary, I didn't communicate as an elected official. I didn't separate the conversations I was having with my family and the conversations I was having at the briefings. I didn't speak as a politician, as a governor. I didn't even have those filters. When I didn't know the facts, I told you that. When I was worried, I told you that. When I saw a glimmer of light, I told you that. When I was sick to my stomach, worried about my brother, I told you that. If you don't remember, his brother Ham had COVID as well as his sister-in-law. When I was frightened for my mother, I told you that. When I had to quarantine my daughter, I told you that. Now, in normal politics, they would say, oh, you can't talk. You can't show fear. They'll use that against you. But for me, it was all or nothing anyway. They had to believe me. They had to trust me. They had to trust the information, and I had a very short period of time to do it. It was all just genuinely daily conversation. And if they were going to mock my sense of humor or mock me for being weak because I expressed fear, so be it. But I didn't connect. But if I didn't connect, then people would follow the policies and then the curve wouldn't be flattened. I'm sorry, but if I didn't connect, then people wouldn't follow the policies and then the curve wouldn't be flattened. And then we'd have tens of thousands more people dead. So that's what I did. What Governor Cuomo did and what he demonstrated so beautifully is he decided to be what he called New York tough. But in being New York tough, he was choosing to practice interdependence. New York tough means you're smart, you're united, you're disciplined, and you're loving. He decided first to be that himself, and this is the spiritual ideal, y'all, right? The quote is attributed to Gandhi. We don't know if he said it. Be the change that you want to see in the world. First, he demonstrated what smart, united, disciplined, and loving looked like. Because if he didn't embody it, nobody else would buy it. If he couldn't embody it, his staff wasn't going to buy it. And if he didn't embody it, the rest of the state, and beautifully enough, the rest of the nation wouldn't buy it. See, the power of interdependence is the power of love. And what does love do? People change and respond to love. Right? When someone says, I love you, something happens on the inside. When you feel and you know that you're loved by someone, something changes within you. You show up differently. You walk differently. You stand differently. People change and respond. See, the power of interdependence is the power of love. The impossible becomes possible. The power of interdependence is the power of love. Mountains are moved. The power of interdependence is the power of love. The miracle, the shift in perception happens. Now, in the description for this series, I wrote these words. Learning to release our addiction to us sets us on the path to we. With a renewed sense of interconnectedness, we can heal and solve the great challenges of our time. But the only way to do that is with interdependence. The only way to do that is to let go of, forgive, and set ourselves free of the misuse of the story of independence. And so again, it is affirmation time. So right here and right now, wherever you are, whomever you may be with, let's affirm this together. I am interdependent. I am interdependent. We choose to solve the world's problems together. I am interdependent. One more time. I am interdependent. And to that I simply say amen, ashe, and so it is. So it is.
Yes, yes, for the interdependence. Yes, yes, for moving from us to we. Yes, yes, for healing ourselves and healing this planet. Yes, yes, for interdependence. It's so important that we remember that we are connected, not just in theory to the one mind, power, and presence, but that mind is the mind that connects us all. And how are we going to operate? We see what happens when people are independent. It's important that we understand this connection, that we practice this connection, that we realize and recognize what was sacrificed for us to continue this connection. Oh, thank you so much.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I am grateful for this series. I'm grateful for this moment. what I'm reminded of in this moment, as we are in election season, and as we will find out in the weeks to come who the next president of the United States is, specifically, if the outcome is a new outcome, we will, of course, support the Biden-Harris administration, but we recognize that this is part of what our job is, right? That we have to tap into and operate from interdependence. That's what's going to be required of the Senate. That's what's going to be required of Congress. But it's also going to be required of each and every one of us, because we don't know when the end of this pandemic will be, although we know there is and will be an end. And so our interdependence is what has us doing the things that support not only our immediate family, not only our immediate loved ones, friends, etc., coworkers, but people we don't know, strangers, people we may never meet. And we hold that because we recognize this absolute truth, which is a spiritual truth, which is a truth of love, but it must be practiced. Yes, yes. So it is time for giving. You see the information on the screen, and as we say every week, because it's this, I think, one of the simplest ways to understand giving and receiving is that we must give what feels good, right? When we exhale, it feels good, and there's a recognition that there's more to breathe in, right? We don't exhale with fear, right? Exhaling out of shame or guilt, right? You holding all that air in your body. Why don't you let it out, right? Like, nobody does that, right? Why are you hoarding air?
Is this air red or blue?
Right, right. We don't do any of that, right? It doesn't have any of that energy associated with it, and that's why it's a beautiful experience, right? Of giving and receiving. And so is the same with our finances. What we're doing with our finances, it is a symbol of this wider, larger spiritual truth. And so we must give what feels good. Give without shame, give without guilt, give without worry, give without doubt. And so find your joy number, because your joy number is that number that has no shame, that has no guilt, that has no worry, that has no doubt attached to it. When you give from that place, that's when the cycle of giving and receiving becomes so amazing, right? It becomes so amazing and so beneficial, and you just live in that pressed down, shaken together, and running over reality that is available in life. You live in that reality that you never really seem to run out, even when you think you're about to run out, right? That doors are open and opportunities show up. You're moved to the front of the line. You're given free things. You receive unexpected checks. You receive unexpected love. You receive unexpected opportunities. These are the things that happen when you give what feels good. So the information is on your screen. You can go to our website, celebrationsc.org/give, and give what feels good, or you can text to give 347-744-9500. There is a $10 minimum on texting to give. And so when we give from this place, then we absolutely know this to be true, that all the money that I use, returns to me multiplied. In a never-ending cycle. Of increase. And enjoyment. Yes, yes. So we take a very joyous offering, and oh wow, we're at the end of service.
We are at the end of service.
So please know that we love you all. We think of you always. We're praying for you always. We're praying with you always. We're in voting season. Get out the vote. Do your things. I got to finish my poll worker training so that I can work as a poll worker next week. But we celebrate you all. You know, we have one more Sunday before Election Day, so I won't say more, but I know that many of you will be voting this week. So we send you love all across the nation.
The energy of what we're seeing is amazing, and I am so glad to be alive in this time. My presence, your presence on the planet right here and now is not an accident.
Nope.
So we move out this week, whatever we do,
Yes.
on purpose, with a purpose.
Yes, yes.
Knowing that we are divinely guided, loved, held, and interdependent.
Yes, yes. Hold that affirmation with you this week. We'll see many of you Wednesday morning for our Momentum Prayer Call at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Otherwise, we will connect with you again at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on YouTube or on Facebook, right? So we love you all. Bye for now.
Bye for now.